Hello, my name is Chuck Wolf. Over the years, I've worked in many different roles, including leading my own leadership consulting company since 1994. I've worked for and with some of the best companies and universities in the world, and have had the opportunity to work with government officials, military organizations, and public and private schools. I'm a leading expert and pioneer in emotional intelligence. Since 2009, I've been a volunteer hosting a radio show I created called The Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. I really enjoy making a difference in people's lives. The show is on award-winning community radio station, WPKN in Bridgeport, Connecticut. In recent years, Simsbury Community Television has been sharing my shows on their station and on YouTube. My sincere hope is that everyone who watches regularly will learn how to use the Emotion Roadmap in their own lives by listening to people who call in to get help with challenges at work, home, and in communities. To learn more, go to www.emotionroadmap.com. If you have a comment or question, email me at cjwolf@cjwolf.com. Thank you and enjoy the show. And this is Chuck Wolf. You're listening to the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel on WPKN 89.FM and listener-supported radio. Also available on WPKN.org. It's a pleasure to be back here with you. I want to thank everybody who's a regular listener for tuning in. It's great to have people who regularly listen to the show and hopefully get the kind of guidance that provides a positive and meaningful difference in your life in helping you to deal with life's challenges. As we enter this second Wednesday of the month, I want to remind everybody I'm on the first and second Wednesdays from 12 to 1 p.m. and the show's on the community strip, and it's all about all of you in our community. And so we wish you a very a pleasant day and month ahead, and would like to entertain anyone who's got phone calls that they'd like to make to me. Those of you who are regular listeners know the show's about answering your phone calls and working with you to help you to deal with challenges in your life that you may be unclear about how to resolve. You may be undecided about decisions that are key that are going to have a major impact, not only perhaps on you, but other members of your household, your family, your partner. It might have an impact on your workplace. Lots of times people who are very smart, who are excellent critical thinkers, often get stuck when something in their life is a problem for them that seems to be really hard to resolve. It almost always has emotions attached to it, strong emotions internally. Sometimes it's a decision that you are struggling with just by yourself. It's something you have to decide for yourself. It may impact mostly just you, but it's unclear what the right choice is. Often it's a decision or a conflict or a circumstance and situation where you are dealing with others and unsure how to proceed. It may have something to do with the team that you're a part of in the workplace, or perhaps in part of your community life, or something to do with your home life, where your struggles might happen between partners, between parents and children, between in-laws, outlaws, if you will. There's also just all kinds of things in our life that are impactful. I know a lot of people, for a variety of reasons, are struggling with what's happening in the world today. And I'm hoping that perhaps just listening to this show provides you some guidance in how to deal with whatever emotions you're experiencing that, for whatever reason, you find unhelpful. And I'd like you to understand that emotions that are unpleasant are not always unhelpful. So that perhaps if you're feeling very sad because of a loss of someone that you cared for or loved even, that's an appropriate emotion. But if it's lingered too long and you can't get past it, that perhaps is the kind of help that I could provide in this show. Also, sometimes there are just things at work where you really like a lot about what's in your workplace, but there are certain people that are difficult or challenging for you to get along with. So you may have some concerns around something in the workplace where it isn't working quite the way that you'd like it to work. and I can help with that. My background, for those of you that are new to the show, part-time psychologist doing therapy as a family therapist for a number of years, adjunct faculty member in different universities teaching about psychology or emotional intelligence. And also I've been a leadership coach for many, many years, working with all kinds of organizations, so that the chance of you calling in and working in an environment that I don't know something about is probably pretty slim. I've worked with all kinds of organizations, from small to mid-sized to very large, from large-scale businesses on the Fortune 500 list to government institutions. I've worked with the military. I've worked with, I think, almost all the branches of the military, except I haven't really worked with the Air Force by itself. I guess I've worked with the Coast Guard, the Navy, and the Army. And I've worked with all kinds of universities, and I've worked with schools too. I actually began early in my career. I was a number of years. I was working as a school counselor, both in elementary school and junior high school. So, lots of different experiences. And as a therapist, I was a family therapist, so I've dealt with a lot of family issues. But most of my career in the last 30-some years has been focused on emotional intelligence in organizational life. But I also help people with emotional intelligence in their family lives as well. So if you've got a call that you'd like to make because you want to get some help and you're a regular listener and you know how it works, just remind everybody what the number is. I'm going to give the number. I'm going to say it a couple of times. And I encourage you to call in, because as many of you who are listening regularly know, I come in with topics to talk about, and I have things to share I think that will be interesting and useful for you to know about. But the real dynamism comes when people call, and without knowing who's calling, I'm hopefully able to help you use this roadmap I created to guide you in helping you to deal with the emotions that are in play that somehow seem magically at times to offer you new options about whatever it is you're dealing with that seem like they have a chance to work. I call the process emotion-based planning. And the concept of a roadmap is simply that wherever you are, whatever you are feeling, and you want to get to another place or another feeling, another emotion, different than the one you're experiencing, I help people do that in a variety of ways. And I'll say more about that as the show goes along. But that's the idea. So if you've got something that you feel concerned about, it's always better to call at the beginning of the show, because I'm on from 12 to 1 p.m. on the first and second Wednesdays. And it's really not till 1 p.m. It's till 12:55, because then a public announcement comes on at 12:55. So I've got 55 minutes and about 50 of them left now. So if you wanted to call in, it's best to call in the beginning of the show, so I really can listen to you and hear you and understand what's going on for you. Obviously, I can't listen to everybody's life stories in an hour's show, but I do ask for sort of what you might call an executive summary. Just give me the gist of what's going on for you. And then I ask you, how are you feeling? And how is it that anyone else that might be key to what you're trying to get done feeling? And then, because the chances are good that the feelings you have may not be the ones you need, I ask you to think about what might be ideal to feel for you and for anyone else that might be key. And then the concept of the roadmap is to help you move from where you are to where you want to get to in terms of feelings. So the number to call, if you've got something going on in your life, in your family, in your workplace, in your community, any one of those areas that is challenging you and you feel uncertain how to proceed and you'd like some help with that, the number to call is 203 336 9756. 203 336 9756. And I'll give you a moment to call. And again, I encourage you to call at the beginning of the show when I have more time. Then sometimes people wait to the very end and I can't really help them. By the way, I wanted to thank Bob from Essex, who called in at the end of last week's show just to say he really appreciated and enjoyed the show. And I really, anytime I hear that from someone, I just want you to know that it's appreciated. I do the show because I find value in making lives better for people if I can. And I've been volunteering to do this for now. This is my 16th year. which every time I say 16 years, it's sort of unbelievable to me that it's been going on this long, but it has been. So I've had this nice relationship with this wonderful station, WPKN, for all these years. And we're in the 16th year now. So in any case, again, if you want to call, the number is 203-336-9756. And I'll give you a moment. So things that you might be calling about, workplace issues. Maybe you're a leader with some decisions that you're going to make that are going to have a large impact on people and you're concerned about that. Maybe you've got some followers or team members, part of your team that you're struggling to manage. I can help with that. Maybe it's a team member, someone that you work alongside that you're struggling with. Or perhaps you work for someone that you don't understand their leadership style and it's a real problem for you. And while you like a lot about the workplace where you are, you may not like the actual leader that you have. What might you do about that? So I'm capable of working on and helping with anything to do with the workplace. At the same time, I'm also, again, years ago, and still help families on occasion deal with family issues that have to do with people not getting along for whatever reason inside their families. There's lots of challenges that present themselves. Sometimes they're external challenges that make it hard to get along with people inside your home if you don't agree with certain things that they feel or believe or think about or want to do. That is quite different than some of the values you might hold. Even though you might love somebody, you might have different values or different beliefs, and sometimes that's a struggle to get that right. So whatever it is that's going on in your life, if you got something you'd like to call about, the number again is 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. And I'll give you a moment. I know it's hard to pick the phone up sometimes and make the call, but it seems like most everybody that calls seems like they get some help. Sometimes it feels really good to them. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Who am I talking to, please?
Hey, it's Mike from Shelton. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Nice. Thank you for calling. What can I do for you today?
Very welcome. I've listened to your show, and I've been a PKN listener since 1969, maybe earlier.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I've documented it back to my first albums and records, and I never thought I'd call into your show, but yeah, I have a family dynamic that's been bothering me for the longest time. And if you can point me in the right direction, or at least a direction, I'd sure appreciate it.
Well, thanks for calling in, Mike. I just want to, before you start, I just wanted to say I have anyone else that might call while I'm on the air with you I'm not going to be able to pick up because I'm by myself. I just had another call. That's why I'm saying that. But
all right.
Mike, I always, you called, you got in, and so let me see if I can help you. What do you got?
Sure. Okay. My wife and I, we've been divorced for 20 years. We were married in 1979.
Okay.
And after 25 years of marriage, out of the blue, she said, you've been a wonderful husband and a great father, but I'm leaving you.
Wow.
And at that point, in September of 2003, we had an almost 20-year-old son, just started freshman college, and a 23-year-old son with special needs, though autism, but he's high functioning.
Okay.
And I knew she left the relationship, and if she hadn't left the relationship, she says she would have committed suicide. And she's had mental health issues forever and ever and ever.
Okay.
But we all love her. But fast forward now to 2016, and she tries her best to reach out to the boys. They are now 39 and 42.
Okay.
And neither one of them is communicative with their mother. And it really came to a head in Christmas of 2016, where there was a blow up at a family situation. Now, we've been lucky, lived on the golf course in Monroe, and she has a house on the beach, and God's been good, life's been good. And we're in a position to get therapies, and she seeks therapy. And I understand one of my sons does. But here's the point. I'm stuck in the middle because I am friendly, not friends, but friendly with my ex. And we keep in touch. And, of course, I keep in touch with my sons. And my ex has become more and more and more agitated and horribly upset and depressed that her boys haven't talked to her now and going on 8 years. And her comment is, I left the family. I know it. I went away. I had no contact with you. I lived a life in New York City that I had to do, or else I think I would have gone off the edge. But I've come back, and I've made amends the best I can. I think I'm living a good life, which she is. And she says to me, but Mike, you forgave me, and you and I have a good relationship. My answer's been no. I haven't forgiven you, but I've accepted what it was, and I can accept it. And her story is that shouldn't the boys be reaching out to me? And I say, I think you should be reaching out to them too. We're the grown-ups in the relationship. And here we are now, 42 and 39, especially the 39-year-old, who is very sharp, was very close to his mother, and that's the one that really kills her. I don't ever go as a go-between between the two, never. But the mother would like to have some communication with the son, some way, somehow to break the ice. She says he's blocked her on Facebook and so forth. And my comment has been, why don't you just drop a card or a letter every once in a while? And if they don't get opened, they don't get open. But that's my suggestion. I don't know what to do. What do you say?
Okay, so you're in a place where your ex is reaching out to you and asking for help, and you're wondering, is there something you can do? Is that? And your boys have shut her off. They haven't done anything yet. So, Mike, does that sound
That's
like
right.
what's going on? Okay, so then the question I have for you,
I'm honoring their, and they've told me that, and they've honored it, and they've been very respectful that I haven't interceded and I haven't pushed them either way.
That's what I was going to ask you next. What have they said to you about this? Do you have any feel for where they're coming from? I mean, obviously, tremendous hurt, rejection. I understand the pain that they must have felt. Obviously, it's unique to them and their own experience of it. But they haven't reached out. They haven't reached back. They're still. I mean, maybe they haven't forgiven and they haven't accepted it either, I guess.
Well, consider, though, from 2003 when she left until she came back into their lives 5 or 6 years later. So from around 2007, 8 to 2016, for those 7, 8 years or so, they did have a relationship, and they did see each other, and they did spend time together, a lot of good time.
Okay.
But that's, I think, what bothers the mother the most, that there was a glimpse there of having a relationship. Yeah. And it really did reach a head in 2016, that Christmas, when the issue was brought up again, the elephant in the room, and it firmly squashed any opportunity. So there was a shining light, and then it's been just absolutely snuffed out. And here I am, and I've been asked not to, and I haven't interceded, but I'm aware of each person's feelings. And I say that to them, that I'm cognizant of how they feel.
So, Mike, you've been doing this for a very long time. So it always makes sense anytime you're trying to help somebody, like I'm going to try and help you, is to ask, what have you already tried and what are you thinking about doing? Because you've been thinking about this a long time. So before I go down and suggest the obvious, I'd like to know what you're thinking and what you might be thinking about trying. And also, did you say you're seeing a therapist?
No, I'm not, but my wife has,
okay.
And she has been for a long time, and it's necessary. And the 39-year-old is seeing a therapist, and in fact, the 42-year-old is seeing somebody locally, but it's more of a med check.
Okay, gotcha.
They're well-rounded kids. They're good kids.
Okay, so they're
39 and 42.
They're in a place where they're doing okay without the relationship.
Yes, correct.
And so then any possibility of rekindling the relationship runs the risk of upsetting their lives, potentially.
I would say that's a potential.
Yeah, okay. So as I said, I'd just like to know, what are you thinking about? I mean, at this point, you're calling me, I know, so you're asking for some help, but I'm assuming you've got some ideas of your own about things that you might do.
What I have been doing with with the spouse over the last couple of years or so. When I see her once a month or so, and we'll spend a Sunday afternoon at her place, and she has a beautiful little house out on the cottage on Milford Beach, and I'll explain, or if she brings it up, how hurt she is, and I'll say that you hurt me too because you left the relationship, and I know the boys did, and I don't fault them for not coming around full circle and saying come back into the fold, but I have. I only think because it's my nature. And there's a bit of, whether it's societal or cultural blood in them, that one is going to wait for the other to make the first move, and neither of them makes the first move. And I'm at a point where I don't discuss it at all with the boys, but I do with my ex, their mother.
So are your boys seem okay with keeping the distance, do you think?
Oh, yeah, they're fine. They seem fine, yeah.
And it's just your ex that seems to be like hurting because of what's happened.
She's hurting, yes. They're her two sons. She loves her boys. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I guess a couple of choices that you have to make that you're facing is, one, do I get involved? That's the question. If I'm you, I'm asking myself, because they've said that they're not interested in my involving them. If she goes back and she hurts them again, I'll feel terrible that I brought her into their lives at this point and managed to get a connection made. And so I run that risk. At the same time, I also, if I'm you, I'm thinking, this is kind of her problem. It's not my problem, and I'm willing to listen to her. I don't necessarily want to run the risk of reintroducing the boys to her if they're not interested.
And I've used the line from my own 12-step program, having a qualifier such as their mother, my ex, my own 12-step, as we always learn, and I live, that there are consequences to our actions. And this unfortunately happens to be a consequence to your action. And of course, as a kid growing up, my mother would say, you make your bed, you lie in it, which is kind of the same thing.
Right.
And she doesn't like the consequence. And if there's something I could do, I'd like to. If not, then I just have to wait in the wings. But I feel helpless.
So there's two things that are in my mind to help you. One is to help you let go of feeling helpless and feel like this isn't about me. And my kids have made the decision. They're adult men. They're having good lives. Their mother caused this to happen. That's the sleep in the bed you made, right? And I feel bad about that, and I'll continue to feel I'm sorry that happened, but that doesn't impact me. I dealt with my hurt from this a long time ago. I'm willing I'm willing to have a friendly relationship, not be friends, but I'm not helping them with this. This is something that the boys, if some point if they want, they'll come around and they'll decide they want to have a relationship with you. But it's not on me. And help you to think about, how do you deal with that feeling when it bubbles up and it feels like, geez, I wonder if I should do something. And the answer is no, that you really shouldn't. And then you need to let it go. And it's more about nothing to do with your ex and nothing to do with your boys. It's more about what's in your own head, Mike, and what you say to yourself about that. That's one choice, right?
I've never thought of that. It's for me to let it go.
Yeah.
Isn't that, I never gave it that perspective. Right. I'm on the outside looking in. I don't like what I see, but I don't have a horse in the race. I like that. That's helpful. Thank you.
Well, there's another piece to the puzzle, because I'm not saying that that's necessarily the right choice, but it is one choice.
Go ahead.
Here's the other choice. The other choice is you take one shot at this. You do involve yourself, and you do go to your boys and you say, look, I was very hurt. I know how hurt you were. I know what 2016 kind of like set everything off when everybody started to revisit all the bad feelings that everybody had. But I feel like we were a family. There's something that seems real to me about your mom wanting to be involved with you. I don't know. There's always a risk in opening up to yourself to anyone else. And there might be a risk again with your mother. And I don't necessarily want you to do this, but I feel like I at least want to talk to you once about this and just see if you think that it might be worth it and that you give it one more shot, and then we're all done if it doesn't work out. But again, I'm not saying you should or shouldn't, Mike. I'm just saying those seem to be the two choices that occur to me that are possibilities.
I like that, and that's for me to determine. And I don't have to counsel with their mother,
No.
my ex. That's for me to make that decision. Whether she ever knows it or not, that's not for her to know. I like that. I'm giving this one shot.
I mean, that's the other choice, right? I mean, you can walk away because there's nothing you did that made this happen, and you've been pretty good.
Correct.
It sounds like trying to make everybody get along, and your kids are in a good place. And so I don't know if I'd open it up, but at the same time,
that's true.
It's
true, because after she had left, and there was a college several years as he was a junior or senior, and I visited him in Boston and took he and his friends out to dinner. There was 10 or 12 of them. In one of the guests at the table, one of his friends, must have been 10 of us, said, Matt, I've met your dad a whole bunch of times. We've never met your mother. And he turned around and said, oh, my God, she's a monster. You don't want to meet her.
Yeah.
And that'll stay with me to the day I die.
Yeah.
But that's the feeling. And she's a stunningly attractive woman, headstrong, but there are issues. And I wish this could be resolved. All right, that's fantastic. I like the two that you gave me. It's not for me, but it may be worth me giving it one shot. And there's credibility, because I've never brought this up again to my son, especially the 39-year-old, in the last 8 years. So if I give it one shot, it really would be just the one shot. It's not like I'm harping on him.
And the other thing, just to add to this, Mike, because when I think about this concept of trying to help people feel better about whatever's going on in their lives, I think about who else is key to all of this, and the other people that are key are the ex, how she's feeling, and of course your two boys. Your adult men, boys, but your children.
Yeah, that's correct.
Right. So, and so part of this, I think, if you choose the second option, which is to go to them this one time, I would be very, very careful that the way you present it, you understand if they are enjoying their life and there's been too much pain and they don't want to go there, you're fine with that, and there's no guilt on anybody to do this. It's just a way of saying, she does love you, but she's had issues. Those issues are still there. There still might be pain involved with whatever happens if you decide you want to open that up. And I can understand if you don't. On the other hand, she is your mom. You had a relationship. There were times that were great. And if you want the experience of joy with her and moments that might still be left to all of you, understand that there might be consequences that also result in deep pain and depression, because she's still who she is. But at the same time, I don't want to let it go without at least opening up and at least having a conversation with you about it, and just talking to you about whether you think you might want to give this a try. And if you don't, I'm fine with it. And if you do, I'm fine with it, and I'll try and help. That's the way I
Thank you so much. I'll reflect on that. You give me I'm pretty worldly wise, and that these are two perspectives that have been subconscious, but you've brought them to the top of my consciousness. Thank you so much. This is fantastic.
Thank you very much, Mike, for calling. And again, I hope everybody else that's listening, you're not alone in these kind of problems. So I hope everybody else that's listening gets some guidance as well. Thanks, Mike, and good luck with it.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Who am I talking to, please?
Gary.
Hi,
and
Gary.
I appreciate the last conversation that the individual brought up. It struck a lot of things with me, but not necessarily with the subject matter I have, but it's enlightening to be able to know that you're not alone out there.
Yeah, that is a big part of getting some help, right? Thank you for saying that, Gary. Yeah, what can I do for you, Gary?
Well, a couple of months back, I have a friend of mine I've known for decades, platonic. We both met in a 12-step group, which was codependency, many, many decades ago. And it was always platonic, nothing more, nothing less. And a couple months ago, she lives with her son and her future daughter-in-law, and something occurred where her stress level was over the top, crying. And I, as I am, a kind person, said, listen, why don't you come down here, stay here? So the individual, my friend, she came down with one bag, and she came down with a lot of angst and issues with that. And what happens a couple of weeks later, I saw more bags coming. So it looks like, well, officially, I think she moved in.
Yeah, it's quite a story, Gary. Okay, yeah.
So I didn't say much. I didn't set a precedent or a plan. He said, okay. And so what happened was the first couple of weeks, I thought I really opened up Pandora's box because this person has a lot of issues from being in that environment and not getting along and not talking to her daughter who lives in another state. And so the first couple of weeks, I said, what did I do to myself? You do out of kindness. Right. Things settled down. Things kind of gotten along fairly well. And we sit at the kitchen table sometimes, and I listen to her talking about her background with the emotion of being physically abused or emotionally abused from her past, from God knows decades prior to meeting her in codependency meetings. And what happened was that I talked about my stuff, but I noticed that she has a double-edged sword at times because I'm a compassionate person, a kind person. I give of myself. She's on a little bit of hesitancy and not allowing, kindness is taken. Well, if I want something, I'll get it myself. And I said, well, the only reason I ask you if you like something, I have to be getting up. I haven't established anything as far as quote unquote payment because of her limited income that she gets from Social Security. So that conversation came up very lightly. She's been in there since late November. We're into February, but there's times where there's this nitpicking, or it's almost like I use my words loosely. In the evening, there may be some kind of flirtatious bantering, and I don't want to read into it too much, but sometimes I may say something, and that remark may be held in her mind where she'll bring it up. Why did you say that? Or what, and the reason I'm saying this, I've never been personally married. I've had a woman in my presence, girlfriends who've stayed a few days. This is like a whole new beginning for me. And I'm not a young man. I'm in my early 70s. So it's like a learning curve. But at times I feel like I'm walking on eggshells, and it doesn't feel comfortable. I try to talk about it sometimes with her where she says, no, you want to be right all the time. So I decided, my friend says, maybe it's best for you just to walk away and come back to it. And then it does happen a half hour later it becomes lightened up. But I think it's important to talk things out, communicate things. I do care for this person deeply. I don't want to say I love her in that aspect. I could say I love her as a person, and she could say that she likes me. But I don't want to read into it more than it is. But the bantering of maybe some kind of negativity or nitpicking or it looks like it's getting angry sets me off in a way that I feel fear. But yet this is my apartment. I feel fear, but yet it's my apartment who brought somebody in. And I have this thing, and maybe answer my own question. I feel like a separation anxiety, as if, oh, no, the bottom's going to fall out. She's going to bail. I did get used to somebody in the house now, but I realized that I'm dealing with a female. Nothing against females. It's just that I'm trying to understand. It's not, somebody who has their own issues. I have my own. And I think it's important to talk, but I also want to feel comfortable inside my skin. And I noticed that I've been a little bit like the walking on, watching what I say, like, a little bit like eggshells. And I don't know why the fear is there. And I am seeking counseling. I'm going to start a new therapist next Tuesday. This woman was involved in counseling a woman's battered shelter because things have happened to her. But I mentioned to her about going to counseling. She said, no, at this stage of my life, I really don't need it. But I'm not one to judge. I just brought it up. But this is kind of the logistic of what's going on. So I probably there's a little bit more to it, but that's the logistic of it.
Yeah, that's a good summary, Gary. I think I got it. I think you've got you're being kind and compassionate with somebody that you cared about, who was struggling in the circumstance where she was living, and you invited her for a night, and then all of a sudden, it seemed like it turned into, she's living with you now, and you haven't really discussed, is she like roommate that should pay rent? Is she somebody that you're a couple and you're actually going to have some kind of intimate relationship, or is it? And it's kind of like where is this going? And do I and what do I actually want to have happen? It sounds like those are sort of questions that I'm hearing. Does that sound right?
Yeah, because my friend said, "What do you expect out of this?" And I don't want to be, my daughter brought up something to me years ago, and this doesn't mean it applies to me. He says, when I had my boyfriend, it wasn't a boyfriend. They were just a friend. It became more natural. I was the type of individual. I use my words loosely. I started out at third base, not knowing somebody. I didn't hit a home run. I would strike out. So I didn't really get to know the person. I've known this person for years. So I'm a little bit befuddled because she also has her little bit of edge to it, a double-edged sword, and she could be somewhat crude at times and then be kind. So I can't be a psychologist here for her and say she's bipolar or anything, but I'm also trying to figure out, where I can have a comfort zone for me and not be hesitant. Oh boy, I better go home. Who's going to be there? Who is that person? Is everything going to be okay? Did I say something last night? And again, it relates to my thing. It doesn't mean she's thinking that way. It's my thought process. And I realize I'm maybe overanalyzing this or possibly need to talk more to her. So I don't know.
So for me, this starts with, so you told me that you're feeling somewhat fearful. And you explained it sounds like anxiety around walking on eggshells. Sounds like I'm anxious about the things that I might say or what might happen if I say the wrong thing, whatever. And you sort of feel like you got questions around, do I even want her to stay? And if she stays, what's the relationship going to be? And is there an exchange of money because she's using my place? Is there an exchange of some kind of are we going in a more intimate direction? Are we just pals? I mean, and so there's lots of questions that you've got. But I guess one of the things that you want to ask yourself is, how do you want to feel? If it worked out perfectly for you, how do you want to feel about having her in your house? What is your thought about feelings in terms of what you'd like to have happen if it was possible?
I understand there's always going to be an up and down with anybody, male or female. I think it's just to have a sense for me, because I know it's me on my end with feeling this. I want a sense of peace, and I want to feel comfortable and not feel as if, God forbid, I said something that might be offensive or they could take it wrong. Because I've been known, and not that I've done this, I've been known that things are going quite well. I found a way to throw a wrench into a fine run engine. But I'm also dealing with an individual who has been, as I reiterated, had been physically, emotionally in a past marriage that she had, and I've heard the story deeply. So my own mom was carrying things for 50 years, knowing exactly what she dealt with my dad, and it was only over a 2-year period. So, I'm not the enemy here. I'm just the person who opened his door, didn't discuss the money situation because of her money situation. I did bring up about, she does clean, she does cook, she does things like that. I've been more than kind enough to do things. What do I want to feel? I want to feel a sense of peace and knowing that I'm not walking into a minefield. Okay.
All right. So that's clear. Okay. How about her? What do you think she's feeling, and what do you think she wants to feel? What's your best guess?
I think she wants to feel comfortable. I don't know. I mean, she does. I'll give you an example. She's retired. She does diamond painting. She likes watching TV with movies. God bless. And, and I think that my own neighbor says she doesn't really go out much. She stays in the apartment, does what? I think she's just who she is. She's very defensive to want to, because I told her, I says, I do care for you deeply. Otherwise you wouldn't be here. And I open my door to you. And she said, well, I care for you too. I like you a lot. And, but at one time she said, I'm not willing to go down that path because I don't want to be hurt. So I'm trying to let things just fall in place when I heard that and not force anything. The word of love, there's so many different forms of love. So I can't say, oh, my God, I'm infatuated, I'm in love with her. But I just want to have a sense for how she's thinking. Gee, that's a good one. That's a good one. I don't want to psychoanalyze her, but good question. I
Well,
don't know how to answer.
here's one of the things that you might think about, Gary. See, I think that both of you have had ups and downs in your lives, causing you to have to be in the program that you're in where you met her, and that you both have struggled at times to maintain equilibrium. And then a few things that you shared about her have made her. It's really hard for her to trust somebody. It sounds like to me, based on the background she's had, and yet there's a piece of her that feels like this is beginning to feel like home to her, but she doesn't know yet what she wants either.
Right.
And so it seems like the mystery is unfolding for you. And, the call today, what makes some sense to me is that maybe a conversation with her about, maybe just ask, can I have some permission from you just to tell you how I'm feeling? Just let me just talk. And then I'd like, if you're comfortable, to tell me how you're feeling. And what I want to end up talking about is how we both want to feel together here, and see if it's possible for us to, try to understand what's okay, what's not okay, and to begin to have conversations where the things that you're worried about, like I'm worried if I say something, it's going to cause you. And I know you've had some very tough things in your background, and I got to believe it's hard for you to trust anybody, or, and I don't have these skills necessarily, but I'm finding I really enjoy having you here. And I really do care about you. And I'd like to know how to make this more comfortable for me. What would you like?
About the wording. Yeah, it comes down to the wording, because, and I may inject this, when I had been attacked, I would say, it's not really an attack, but some jargon came out and I was saying something. So you always try to be on the right. So I decided it's best at that point, keep quiet, walk away, but at a more peaceful time to be able to say what you had just mentioned and bring it out to that way, because I need feedback from the other side. I could say what I feel to the point that I best know how I feel, and to feel comfortable, with the hope that, but some habits are hard to break, aren't they? Especially if they've been doing that for 1,000 years. I've used this word loosely, but I understand what you're putting across, though.
Well, I can't tell you that I can script out a roadmap that's going to tell you exactly how to make every day perfect. But if you're willing to have the conversation about how are we feeling about being together, how do we want to feel, and then maybe at the end of a day, let's just talk about how we did. Not do this every day, but maybe a couple times a week. Let's just talk about how we're doing. And then let's not be afraid to say what's concerning us, and let's not keep secrets, because if it's going to work, I think we need to be transparent with each other, because both of us understand that we care about each other. That's why we're here. But we've also had some tough stuff in our life that makes it hard to have a relationship that's based on any kind of trust. And yet that's what that's what's going to make it work if we can ever get there. Are you willing to work at it with me? Something along those lines.
That's a good analogy. And I realize that when the issue comes up of a little bit of a nitpick, and I try to talk docile, I don't holler, I don't scream. I don't want to talk, just leave me alone. And so I said, well, why is that? Because I'd like to talk. She said, because in my past, I used to scream and say things, and I don't want to do it anymore. So my approach nowadays is, if I become angst or angry, I become quiet and just say, leave me alone. And, and so, but in your assessment in that respect, it would be good to talk to them when there's no angst per se. It's just a common denominator, whether at the dinner table, whatever. But I could respect somebody saying, my way of dealing with things in the past is name calling, screaming, and all the above, and I don't do that anymore. What I do now is I just say, leave me alone. I want to be quiet. And so I come from a family of origin where quietness doesn't work, because my grandfather, who brought up with me, and my grandmother, they would get mad at each other, wouldn't talk to each other for a month, and pass messages through me and my mom. Yeah. So you could see how that doesn't work for me. But what you brought up is quite important. It's all about wording. It's all about how, without feeling as if there's a repercussion by saying that. I want to be honest,
And I think you have to respect what she's saying too, and hopefully she respects what you say, in the sense that you have this history with silence. She's found silence as a golden gift compared to what she was in the past. So yeah, and for you to find some kind of way to make that work is not going to be easy. So one of the things to suggest is that, look, I understand if you need to be silent and I feel the need to talk, I'm not going to talk and I'm not going to push you. But what I would like is when you don't feel upset, that we can go back and revisit this so I know how to do this better if there was something bothering you. And so I don't want to talk now because I understand you can't talk now without it. You're worrying about it getting volatile and deteriorating into something messy. So, and I don't want you to do that. And I want to respect that. But, again, for us to really make this work, hopefully you understand silence for me doesn't work because it means that I don't know what had just happened and why we got to where we got to. Unless we figure out something that I can do different and better, I think we'll just end up there again. And that doesn't work for me. So can we find some way when you're not feeling upset that we go back and revisit this calmly and just talk about, okay, so what did we learn from that? What can we do different and better?
Yeah, like cohabiting and to make it work, I mean, like somebody said to me, this is your place. I don't like that. I mean, but I don't.
Yeah.
No, that becomes a power thing there, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
That's what kind of where I'm at. But I mean, thank you for putting it in that perspective. I mean, you worded it so good. I wish I could memorize it, but it has to come from me, from my deepest feelings.
It does. Well, actually, I don't know. It'll take me a little bit before this. I'm podcasting these things, so you'll be able to hear it another time, maybe at some point on either Spotify or Apple, iTunes. But the important thing, really, I think, Gary, is, and I don't want to denigrate your friend for saying what he said, because it is your place. And at some point, this might not work. I mean, so I mean that there is that reality. But if you're really trying to make it work because you're finding yourself enjoying having somebody there that's cooking and doing some other things, and you enjoy their company a lot of the time, and it seems like you would miss her if she was gone. So I would push that aside. It's always there. If you need to draw on that at some point because it really doesn't work out and it's just not the right thing for the two of you, then so at some point you may need to say that. But again, to me, that's the wrong thing to be thinking about right now. Right now you're thinking about what can we do, both of us, to make this work so we're both as comfortable as possible. Nothing's perfect in this life, but let's just work to be the best we can be. What's the best versions of us?
Yeah. No, that's a great way of putting it. My God, yeah, that's great. That's fantastic. I appreciate the way you put it to me. And, again, I want to, as I earlier reiterated to, I want to feel as if I'm not walking in, I have to be careful what I say, fearful or walking on eggshells, because that's not healthy, stress-wise, health, physical or anything. And I can't continue in that respect. So I have to find a common denominator, like you said, and talk it out.
Let me say one other thing to you. I think that might be helpful because I have a relationship with my wife. We've been together for a very long time, but there are certain topics that we disagree on, and that I know we disagree on. And so while instead of saying to myself, I need to be anxious about what I say, I frame it as if I need to be thoughtful about what I say. Mm-hmm. And that changes it inside me. And if you say to yourself, I got to be careful about what I say, I got to be anxious about what I say, instead of I need to be thoughtful about what I say, it might change it for you too. So that's what I'm saying, suggesting that to you.
No. Yeah, no. I thank you for all that. I thank you for giving me the insight of how I go forward with this. I had one friend said to me, it's all about how you talk and how you put yourself out there, But thank you once again. I appreciate it, and I'll keep you posted maybe.
Okay.
I don't know how often you broadcast. Forgive me, because I just have to catch it today. Is it monthly?
I'm on twice a month. It's the first and second Wednesdays from 12 to 1 p.m. on PCAN.
Oh, okay. All right, first and second. All right. Thank you very much, Chuck. I thank you very much for all your insight.
You bet. Take care, Gary. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye. Okay. Well, thank you, Mike. Thank you, Gary. It's been a good show. It's always interesting to hear what people have that's going on. And if the end of my conversations, people are saying that was really helpful and feels great to me, then I feel great about being here and being helpful. And I hope, again, one of the things I think Gary said when we first opened up was it's nice to know you're not alone in there. This is, years ago, one of the things that stuck with me, certain things in life stick with you. One of the things that I remember learning that I thought was so powerful was a famous psychologist named Harry Stack Sullivan, who introduced to the world this idea of what he called the delusion of uniqueness. It's the idea that something that's happening to me is unique to me, that I wonder if anybody else has ever had to deal with it this way. And actually probably not exactly the same way as you may be facing things, because no one's had your experiences and your unique DNA and personality and beliefs and experiences and so on. But at the same time, a lot of us have challenges in our relationships. A lot of people's marriages don't end well. They end up in divorce. Sometimes there's relationships afterwards between the two partners that were together. Sometimes there isn't. But a lot of people deal with a lot of the same kinds of issues. And sometimes when you find out you're not alone in dealing with it, it actually helps to know that this isn't unique to you. Again, I'm not saying that your personal individual experience isn't unique to you. It is in some ways. But there's so much that overlaps with other people's experiences is what I'm communicating to you today. And this guy, Harry Stack Sullivan, said, once we understand that we're not alone in feeling upset, anxious about what we might say in front of another person that we care about, worried about what's going on with our family, worried about what I might say to this person who works for me that I think is really talented, but I'm having such difficulty getting them to get along with other people. Whatever it might be, the kinds of things that the calls I get, you aren't alone in these things. And that's so important for people to know. The idea that you're not alone, and that hopefully the concept behind the show is when people call in like Mike and Gary were willing to do, and they both walked away feeling great about the things that I was able to say to them and suggest to them as possible ways of dealing with these concerns they had. It seems like to me that other people, anyone who's listening, might be benefiting from these phone calls. The concept of the emotion roadmap works by asking for a summary of what's going on. So if you're dealing with something you're struggling with yourself right now, and you ask yourself, what am I feeling about this? And if somebody else is involved, like there were people involved with both Mike and Gary's stories, how is he or she or they feeling? If what we're feeling, if what I'm feeling isn't what I need to feel, isn't ideal for what I need to get done, is there a better feeling? And is there some way for me to get from what I am feeling to the better, more ideal feeling for me and for anybody else that's involved here that I care about? How do I get from what I am feeling to what's important to care about? So that's the concept. And then it goes from, okay, so what are you feeling? What would be ideal to feel? How do you get from what you're feeling to what's ideal? And then of the possible things we talk about, and I didn't ask the question because I was clear that both in Mike's and Gary's cases, that they seemed like they were, the things that we were talking about, some of the suggestions that I made seemed like they were absolutely things that they felt capable of doing and willing to do. If I'm suggesting something or you're suggesting something to yourself that you're really probably able to do, but not really willing to do, then I would tell you, you probably don't have a plan that's going to work. But when you think of something that you think might work and you're excited to try it and you're able to do it and you're willing, very willing to do it, can't wait to do it, chances are you might have a plan that's substantive, meaningful, and you're going to be productive and when you implement it. So the goal is think about your circumstance. Think about whoever's key that's involved. Ask yourself, what is he or she or they feeling, and what would be ideal for them to feel? What am I feeling, and what would be ideal for me to feel about this circumstance or situation? And then how do I get there? And of the things I think about strategies about how to get there, what am I actually able and willing to do? When I've got a plan that seems like it has the capacity and the potential to move me from what I am feeling and these others to what they are, from what they are feeling to what's ideal for all of us to feel, then I've got something that I think could work, and then implement it. And it doesn't mean that it's a perfect plan. Most plans aren't perfect. Most plans, hopefully, are really educated plans, thoughtful plans, well-researched plans, well-thought-out plans, have a better chance of working than just haphazard plans, but they don't necessarily always work the way we think they're going to work. And then certain things change. So based on what we planned, it made sense at the time, but something changed that causes us to have to rethink the plan. So even if the plan isn't perfect, when you're implementing it and you feel like you got a plan, it's worth trying and then just modifying it. Don't feel upset if it doesn't work perfect. Okay? Well, that's it. Okay, so I'm going to be on the air again the first and second Wednesdays of the month. You've been listening to WPKN. I'm on the first and second Wednesday, 89.5 FM, listener-supported radio. And I want to thank everybody who's been listening so much. I'll be back with you in March. And I believe one time in March, I'll probably have a show that's going to be sent in. I won't be live, but the other show will be. Okay, everybody. Thank you.
For over 40 years, SCM
has been the voice of our town,
bringing us together through local programming,
education,
and live broadcasts.
SCM isn't just about television.
It's about empowering our community,
ensuring our voices are heard during government meetings,
and celebrating milestones
like our high school graduations.
But today, SCM faces a challenge.
Our funding structure is based on television subscriptions.
And it's no secret, people have been cutting the cord.
With a shift to internet-only subscriptions,
SCM receives less revenue,
even though all our programming is freely available online.
We need your support.
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 Your donation can make a difference.
It will ensure that SCM remains open,
continues to educate our youth,
and keeps our community informed.
Thanks to SCM, I've been honing my creative skills, helping me work towards my college degree.
SCM is crucial for keeping our community connected.
SCM isn't just here to broadcast local events. They're actually preserving Simsbury's history.
Join us in preserving Simsbury's voice.
Simsbury's voice.
Together we can ensure that SCM continues to thrive
for generations to come.
Visit our website
or scan the QR code on your screen to make your donation.
Every contribution
counts.
Thank you for supporting Simsbury Community Media,
where your town,
your schools,
and your government
come together.